Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. Welcome back to the DEX show within a show. It's Reality Bytes. It's the panel edition. It's been a while because I hope everybody's been enjoying the parallel series. Downloads would seem to suggest that it was keenly followed. Tim, I think you've definitely got some parallel addicts out there, and we certainly enjoyed participating in it.
Yeah, it was a fun little deviation from the norm, a little campy, a little corny, but love to have the whole team participating. And like Megan, like Megan said one time, it helps you exercise your theater kid chops. So it was a fun little thing. We'll see if we pick it up some other time as well. But it was fun.
You and Megan, the real deal when it comes to theatre kid chops, whereas for the rest of us, it was a question of encountering how few theatre kid chops we had. But we got Megan and Sean with us. Hi, Megan. How you doing?
Hi, Tom. Hi, Tim. I'm good, and I'm excited to be back on the show.
Lovely, isn't it? Sean, how are you?
Doing great. Glad to be back. Hello, everyone.
Good show. Good show. So, as some listeners will know, Tim and I we've been running a summer webinar series on DEXOps, and we've done two installments of this so far. We've had Edward Jones on, we've had Danske Bank. We've covered, along with a lot of Tim's insights, we've been talking about the sort of real world application of theory of DEXOps in these digital workplaces. And so far, Tim, we've covered the technology, the technology selection process,
Right.
and team structure and implementation, right? And we thought we would both give a little bit of a plug for this series, which we'll have links to in the show notes. And there's the third installment coming soon. We'll show you how to register for that also, but also do a little bit of a recap for people who don't necessarily have time to attend all of those long interviews and give a bit of an overview. So, Tim, you're kind of the architect, I would say, a key thought leader in the DEXOps space, to say the least. And you've been laying out some of your thoughts and some of the design of DEXOps in those presentations. But maybe just to level set, what maybe give a definition and explain why this matters so much at the moment.
Yeah. So it's been another fun, if I can use that word again, exercise here at NextThink, because it's very much a collaboration, working hand in hand with our services teams who actually do a lot of this consulting and implementation. But essentially, it boils down to this. For decades, IT environments have been built around this react and respond model, waiting for tickets, chasing incidents, firefighting problems, and they've already disrupted employees. But having become a NextThink customer myself years ago and turning the lights on across the enterprise, you recognize that it changes everything. And I think what we've seen over the last, at least after the last 10 years since I've been here, people are more and more understanding what the implication is of DEX, what DEX is. It's about employee experience in the digital world. But the questions that we've gotten routinely are, how do I operationalize it? How do I make it real? I get the technology, I get what I can do with it, but how do I actually work it into my organization? DEX is really just a set of outcomes of a technology platform. So we developed what I think will become an industry standard for adopting DEX. We called it DEXOps. And you can think of it as applying the rigor of your security operations center or your network command center, but with one key difference. It's centered on operationalizing digital employee experience rather than implementing and operationalizing individual technology silos. DEXOps is about the structure, about proactive monitoring and automation and measurable value, and it's built on, as we've outlined in our webinars, several pillars to drive that success.
Let's start with then, Tim, what we discussed in some detail with Edward Jones, with Tim McCormack there, which is people development. How can organizations realign their existing IT roles and teams without increasing headcount or creating large-scale reorganization? And what pitfalls should they be looking to avoid when introducing that sort of structural DEX first mindset that you just laid out there for us?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions about DEX and DEXOps is that it requires this big reorg or added staff. How many people do I have to hire? In reality, and it was my case as well, most organizations already have the people and the talent they need. It's about changing the focus of those roles and changing that focus over time and aligned with an outcomes based roadmap. So I'll give you an example. A help desk technician who today spends all their time firefighting tickets can be given that real time visibility to find and fix those issues before they show up in the queue, or at least as part of that activity. When the ticket comes in, don't just fix one, go fix 1,000 because you've got the visibility of who else is suffering. A desktop support engineer can move from manually taking escalations or packaging software to monitoring the deployments and monitoring the adoption and automating fixes to those issues at scale across the enterprise. So those are the kinds of shifts that create impact without adding headcount, but that add up over time. And as you create capacity, you can shift more resources onto that proactive team. In terms of pitfalls, the real pitfall is treating it like a side project. I talk about the fact that Dex and DexOps is not a hobby. You're not building birdhouses in the garage, and when something burns in the kitchen, you run in to fix that problem, and no one's building birdhouses anymore. You can't treat it like a hobby. It's not something you just bolt on. If it's not embedded in your daily ops, your old habits of chasing those tickets are going to dominate. And another pitfall I would say is only focusing, and we talk about this in the webinar series, is only focusing on the tools. Standing up dashboards without reskilling people or adjusting processes just reinforces the same old problem. So it really is about rebalancing responsibilities, equipping people with better data, and then putting structure around what they do.
Amazing. And they're also going to inherit a lot of, you kind of touched upon it there, but antiquated manual processes. These need to be modernized, right? What are the key steps to making sure they're also fit for purpose inside those newly reorientated teams?
I think it's all about the operational rigor, similar to what we see in the security ops center or network ops center. It really is critical to have processes around what you're doing, right? The reason rigor is critical, it's simple. Employee experience has to be mission critical as security or system uptime. Nobody would ever say, let's go dabble in security operations, right? It has to be part of, has to have rigor around it. And the same is true for DEXOps and the automation you're creating. If employees can't work effectively, the productivity and customer service operations grind to a halt. So when DEXOps is not focused on with that rigor, you're going to end up with half-baked results. A dashboard here, a script there, maybe a survey, everybody kind of doing their own thing with the tool that they were given, but there's no accountability, there's no ownership, there's no measurable outcomes. It turns into another IT experiment instead of a discipline. So the real differentiator is process and structure. DEXOps has to be woven into your daily workflow. You need clear responsibilities, escalation paths, KPIs, and you've got to be solving defined problems. You always have to be asking, why am I doing this? What is this contributing to? It gets very easy to get lost in the technology and lose track of why you're creating certain pieces of automation and how they contribute. Without all of that structure, you're just adding noise to an already reactive model.
And talk about those career opportunities that DEXOps properly implemented can open up for people, new skill sets, new career vistas, and somebody who's had a kind of somebody whose work you might want to look up is our own Sean Malvey, who was the architect behind our DEX certification series. An announcement, not unrelated to this DEXOps discussion, for those certification series coming soon, I think, Sean. But for now, maybe we could get your insight into the technology selection process. It's obviously key to get the desired outcomes. Tim and I were able to talk to the gentleman at Danske Bank about this specific topic. But what's your perspective, Sean?
Yeah, thanks. So I think there's a lot of challenges that folks will encounter when it comes to technology selection. And one thing to keep in mind is like finding something between like balancing breadth versus like depth of capabilities. So sometimes people can find themselves in a snag when they find something that's really deep in one area but shallow in the others. And then another issue is just like making sure your tools integrate well across the ecosystem. So like without open APIs and a strong integration, it's all those DEX insights you can pull kind of remain siloed. So that's a big problem that you have to look out for. And I mean, there's a slew of other challenges that teams face, but I think one thing is like, although it's down to selecting the tool, it's almost impossible to make any changes if you don't have a mindset shift first, like Tim was alluding to. Like you have to kind of have the full team and department buy into it, into what you're doing and why. It's almost like akin to like a sports team. Like they have a philosophy behind why they're doing certain things. And that is almost like more important than the individual players, or to stick in the metaphor, tools that they have at their disposal.
Value realization and tracking have to be front and center, Sean. I mean, IT has long been seen as a cost center effectively. So how does DEXOps provide the structure to, in your view, translate improved employee experience into measurable business value? And what kind of KPIs or metrics, in your view, best demonstrate the impact, or can best demonstrate the impact of DEXOps to senior leadership?
Yeah, and I think this is the most powerful part, at least for me, that I love about a DEXOps structure and team, because it really is able to translate like huge outcomes and trace it all the way back to like individual decisions and changes that are made within the IT department and behind the scenes. So the biggest outcomes that are going to make a big impact, like in the boardroom, are productivity hours saved, employee satisfaction scores. You can track like obviously the stuff that's really important to IT, which is like ticket count and MTTR, but there's also a way with this system to again look at like time saved and time lost equations. The DEX score as well, like we've seen it with customers that it correlates strongly with an improvement in a DEX score, correlates with like a reduction in time lost. And there's ways to calculate these things and prove that it's not just a gut feeling. Another thing that you can also do with this is like tag it to your NPS score. So looking at like, do you have high employee engagement rates with the actions that IT is taking? These are all things that just make it very tangible and clear when you're in a high level, either a boardroom or a high level meeting with your managers and directors.
Absolutely. And Megan, you've already been, slurred as a theatre kid here on this show, so I don't want to. I don't
Not
alienate.
slurred.
Not slurred. Not slurred. Proud theatre
Yeah,
kid.
quite.
Why is
I
that quite
went to university originally as a theater major, so.
And not just any university, Megan. Listeners might be
Okay.
with a very
One
distinguished.
one in California, but
One in
yes,
California.
I was a theater kid. Yes.
Excellent. So on the matter of communication, I suppose, communication across the enterprise, it's also a must. Culture change is often harder than technical change, which has been a sort of underlying theme throughout everything Tim and I have been doing around DEXOps this summer. But what communication strategies do you consider to be most effective in getting those business leaders, IT staff, and employees themselves aligned around DEX per se?
I am actually thrilled that this question got thrown to me, because not only because I'm a theater kid, but also because I think this can be, from when I talk to our customers when they're getting ready to present at our experience events coming up in just a few weeks here. This seems to be one of the more challenging pieces of DEXOps, I think, for people who maybe work in IT and are more familiar with working with technology than, having to work with people. And I think especially when DEX is a net new function for your organization. You're getting new data. It's a new way of thinking. As you say, culture change. You can meet a lot of resistance if you don't have a strategy for how to communicate your project. And so if you're going, let's say, to the security team or to the network team and saying, hey, this problem, it's because of you, it's because of your system, it can feel like you're pointing the finger at them and saying, this is your problem, right? You're the one to blame. So you have to figure out a way to communicate the things that you're seeing in the data and the things that are possible from the data in a way that feels like you're empowering them, and maybe even letting them think it was their idea to solve it that way in the first place, and finding out ways to sort of bring the data to them and say, what do you think this is saying? What do you think this is indicating? And then, when you have those wins from the data with those sort of teams in partnership, don't gatekeep it, but share, right? Share those wins out. Let them maybe even take some of the credit for the win. And by sharing aggressively those wins across these teams, you'll find more use cases. They'll start to come to you and say, hey, you have this new data. Can we see this? Can we solve this? Like, what about this? And so that can actually help you mature, because it'll help you find the next use case. And then I think when it comes to leadership, and echoes what Sean was just saying, it comes down to learning to speak their language, right? What does your leadership care about? What matters to your business, to your enterprise? Do they want employees to be more productive? Are they just focused on reducing costs? Is there a big M&A strategy happening this year? Dex can support all of those initiatives. It's your job to figure out how, and then communicate that to leadership. And then when you start to get those wins, share those wins aggressively, just like Sean was saying, in their language. And you'll start to get that buy-in and maybe get more investment in your project. And then finally, employees, I think with them as an employee and not someone who works in IT, clear communication, let them know what Dex is. It's something that's making their life easier, and what it's not, right? It's not spyware. We're not paying attention to how many hours a day you're working. And then put in place a governance model so you're not overwhelming them, especially if you're using campaigns, right? You don't want all of a sudden a billion pop-ups on their computer all day. You want them to feel like Dex is there to help them, and it's only telling them things they need to know in the moment. And then I guess one extra thought would be AI, right? AI is obviously taking over the Dex space as it's taking over everything else. And when you're thinking about communicating AI index with your employees, it's all about empowering them, right? Whether it's through self-service or helping them, use AI in a better way. You're just focused on communicating that you're there to help them.
Brilliant. Last question for you, Megan. Obviously, the whole approach that Tim's laid out for DEXOps here and elsewhere is a very holistic, systematic one. But do you think it can be done, in your view, kind of a bit piecemeal? Like, can you do one pillar of the process at the time? Are they able to stand up on their own, do you think?
Interesting question. You can get a project up and running with just one pillar at a time, but it's not going to see the success that you're hoping for. You'll end up spinning your wheels twice as fast, but you're only gonna get half as far, right? You're gonna have to work extra hard. You're not gonna see as much of an outcome. I think the DEXOps structure, as Tim has outlined it, it's a lot of work up front, but it's worth it, because then you can just start spinning up use case after use case after use case, because you have that firm structure in place to be able to be successful. I think without it, you run the risk of your DEX project failing, losing that buy-in from leadership, losing that buy-in from the teams you need to work with, and just sort of seeing the whole thing kind of peter out. So I would say it's worth it to invest in the full DEXOps structure.
Oh, without a doubt. So yeah, I hope people have got a good sort of overview from that. Tim, anything we haven't covered here that you want to pick up on?
Yeah, I think maybe let's take a couple minutes and just kind of throw the ball around the horn, as they say, and I'll throw it to you, Tom. And I get this a lot too when I'm traveling. A lot of organizations that we talk with are really just struggling to keep their head above water, right? I just need to keep the lights on. I don't have time to take on anything new. Is DEXOps only realistic for mature IT shops with resources, or can a lean, overworked team start on this journey? What does a minimum viable DEXOps look like? I'll play questioner on this one. What are your thoughts on it?
Inquisitor. Was that
Yeah.
a term? A lean, overstressed team not only can think in terms of DEXOps and think about that mindset shift, they should be thinking in those terms,
Yeah.
because the whole ethos here is to create efficiencies. It means you stop flying blind effectively. So start measuring the basics of your employees' experience, act on one or two high impact fixes that you can identify, and start to create those efficiencies. Now, will those efficiencies be at the same scale, at the same level of meaning and appreciation as you would find at a big shiny IT shop? The answer is perhaps not.
Sean, what do you think? It's really a combination. The question is really in relation to a combination of DEX and DEXOps, operationalizing the function. But what are your thoughts about busy teams versus those with resources?
Well, I think like maybe even to simplify it more, one thing can just be near term in a quarter or even a month. How quick do you want to improve how you react to problems? And then a more mature DexOps team, regardless of the size, you can move into another stage of like, how quickly do you want to predict and automate those issues and just push it off your plate entirely? And that's how, if I were to simplify it, that's how I'd explain it to someone, that it's kind of like, how quickly do you want to react to the same issues you see versus like later in a year, 5 years from now, whatever it is, how quickly do you want to like predict those problems and get ahead of it before they even arrive as a ticket at your desk?
Yeah, I think the overworked teams, the lean teams, actually get greater benefit from this than the teams with resources. Teams with resources, it's easy to just say, "Hey, I'm going to let Joe take care of this issue. I have people to do this. I don't need the tool or the capability." The overworked teams are the ones that really need it because they have fewer resources to begin with. But Megan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with you, Tim. I think there's a big benefit for a smaller and leaner team to doing this because ultimately what Dex and DexOps leads you to is efficiency. And just a moment ago, when Tom asked me about communication strategies, a lot of what I said came specifically from my conversations with um, our customer at Kimley Horn, who was a Dex team of one and set up a whole Dex pillar, communicated with his leadership, communicated across teams, and got a lot of wins and a lot of benefit from Dex. Again, being a team of one. So I think it speaks for itself. Like that being a lean team doesn't prevent you from seeing the outcomes of this at all.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And Tim, we should direct people to the series if they want to go a little deeper into any of these given topics, right?
Yeah, we got a great series running, and I do think there's opportunity to explore this series maybe on a second pass with some other people. But we've got a great set. They're on demand. You can go back and listen to them anytime. But yeah, that's in the show notes. We'll put some links to what's out there for people to listen to.
And you can join us live for the next one as well, I think, at this point, which is going to be with Centene. And it's going to be about that transition to the sort of more proactive service desk. And what do you think we're going to cover there in particular, Tim?
I think Centene is one of our more mature customers. I'm really interested I'm always interested to hear how a customer has operationalized on the front lines at both service desk and I think some people lump service desk in as being the level 2 and level 3 support folks as well, but I'm really interested to talk with them about operationally how the function has spread across their teams and some of their wins that they get out of it. So it should be a good session.
Fantastic. So join us for that one, and we hope to see some of you in the chat. And also going to put links to, as Tim mentioned, the previous on-demand webinars that we've done. Also, Sean's incredible Dex certification series. You'll be able to sit those for yourself if you're looking to get that head start in your workplace, be it a lean one or an advanced one. You'll find something useful there. And look, we're back now. Reality Bytes is back.
Mm-hmm.
We've had our show PTO, if you will, our dramatic holiday, and you can expect normal programming to resume. More panel shows, more interview shows with great next thinkers that will resume again in 2 weeks' time. We've got some great guests lined up, and we're looking forward. We'll welcome Oriana and Dina back as well very soon, and we're looking forward to seeing you all very, very soon. So thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Goodbye.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how NextThink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nextthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.